Right friends, welcome back to banking questions. So this is the last module of this series. So this is fifth module. We are going to discuss another 10 questions. First one is raising of interest rates by Federal Reserve took place recently. How does it affect the Indian economy? The pertinent question here is because of a rise in interest rates, how the Indian economy in particular will be affected and how the emerging economies are affected in general. You should have clear idea about these 2 points. First and the foremost is this Federal Reserve increased interest rates, benchmark interest rates, just like our repo rate. Federal Reserve is the central bank of United States of America. It raised benchmark interest rates by just 0.25%. They now vary from 0.25 to 0.5%. In India, our repo rate is 6.75, whereas in America, this Federal Reserve just increased by 0.25%. And why there is lot of hue and cry about this increase in interest rates? Because advanced economies like United States of America are keeping very low interest rates for the past several years. Because they want growth, they want free money in the system. Keeping that in mind, advanced economies like United States of America, Eurozone, Japan, United Kingdom, they are keeping very low interest rates. When they keep very low interest rates, what will happen? Lot of money will flow into emerging economies like India, and when they raise interest rates, this money will flow back to the country. That is known as capital flight. Because of capital flight, emerging economies will be affected. But if you ask me with regard to India, India will not be affected much because of reason. First and the foremost is this raise is anticipated for several months. This raise is anticipated for several months. Second important point is India's current account deficit is not much. Third is capital flows to India are not exclusively portfolio flows, they are FPIs and FDI together. We learnt in some classes previously, FPIs are most volatile, FDI is stable, and now capital flows to our country or a mix of foreign portfolio investment and foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment, once it comes to country, it cannot go back easily. Only foreign portfolio investment can go, it is volatile. So, as the capital flows to our country is a judicious mix of FDI and FPI, India is more secure. That is another point. Fourth important point is our foreign exchange reserves are reasonably good at $350 billion. That's why when America increases interest rates, India will not be affected much. But some emerging economies may be affected. That is beyond the scope of this question. Let us leave at this juncture. What do you understand by trade deficit? 3 important points I will tell you. Trade deficit, current account deficit, and the last one is balance of payments. You should have clear idea about these 3 terms. One is a trade deficit. A trade deficit is, this is the difference between imports and exports. If you look at India, we import more than what we export. Our imports are very high in comparison to exports. That's why the gap is a trade deficit. This talks about only physical goods. If I export this comes under export-import trade of physical goods or mercantile exports. Please look into the picture. This shows mercantile exports or exports or imports of physical goods. So, trade deficit pertains to the difference between imports and exports for a country, that is for mercantile goods or physical goods you can say. It should not include services. Right? So, trade deficit is the difference between imports and exports of mercantile goods for particular country. Right? So, for our country, our exports are in the range of around $300 billion. they may come down further this year because exports are falling for the past 1 year continuously. Our exports are around $300 billion and imports are around $450 billion. There is a gap of around $150 billion for our country. That is a trade deficit. What do you understand about current account deficit? I have given here in the illustration. Please look into it. First one is a trade deficit. We have already discussed. Trade deficit plus or minus services. We export software services, we export several technology related services. So that is to be included here when you calculate current account deficit. So the first one is trade deficit. You have to add this services. Third one is you have to add or subtract the royalty payments or profits taken away by multinational companies, that is known as primary income. Pepsi and Coca-Cola are in India, Nestle, that is in India, but they are not our owned companies, they are owned by other countries. They established their companies here. Once they get profit, they will take it away from this country in the form of royalty payments or profit or interest, whatever it is. So that is to be added or subtracted. That means if Indian company is manufacturing goods in foreign country, that is to be added. If foreign company is manufacturing goods in our country, that is to be subtracted. So that is known as primary income. And the last one is several of our nationals are staying in other countries like Gulf and United States of America. They will send a lot of money to our country, that is foreign remittances. That is to be added or subtracted. Added or subtracted in the sense, if it is coming into the country, you have to add. If it is going away from the country, you have to subtract. So if you see in this, so the current account deficit is trade deficit plus services. It is plus for our country because we are exporting lot of software related products. Third one is the minus primary income. Primary income means multinational companies are more in our country in comparison to our companies abroad. So that's why the third term is always minus for us. And the fourth one is always a plus for us, that is our brothers, sisters staying in America and Gulf are sending money to our country, so that is a plus for our country. So if you add all these things together, that makes current account, and for us it is around $40 to $50 billion minus. Trade deficit is around $150 billion, I have told you, minus 150. Software is around plus 60 for our country. Third one is around minus 20. Fourth one is around plus 70. So total it makes around minus $40 billion or so. That is current account deficit. If someone asks about current account deficit, tell in clear terms, it is the sum total of trade deficit plus services minus primary income. If someone asks what is primary income, you have to tell. Multinational companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nestle invested in our country. They will take royalty payments, they will take interest payments, they will take profit. So that is primary income. That is negative for our country. Next, last one is secondary income, or you can say that is foreign remittances. Several of our nationals are staying in Gulf and America. They will send money to our country, to their parents, to their sisters, to their brothers. So that is around $70 billion plus for our country. So current account deficit is trade deficit plus services minus primary income plus secondary income. If you look at our country, and sum total it comes to around $40 to $50 billion minus for our country. So this is current account deficit. If you look at the balance of payments, we have just now discussed about current account. We have around $40-50 billion deficit in current account, and for that you have to add foreign portfolio investments. Foreigners investing in our stock market, you have to add it, and foreigners investing in our country to manufacture various components like Volkswagen cars, like Ford cars, like Hyundai cars, like Nestle, like Pepsi, investment coming to our country for establishing manufacturing base is to be added, that is foreign direct investment. So, the sum total of all payments, that is current account deficit plus foreign portfolio investments, that is stock market investments, that is highly volatile. It can come at any time and it can go at any time. And last one is foreign direct investment, that is most stable investment. The sum total of all these foreign transactions with our country makes balance of payments. And I have already told you, in trade deficit we are deficient by around $150 billion, but when it comes to current account deficit, it is around $40 billion deficit. But when it comes to balance of payments, we are not in deficit, we are surplus because of foreign portfolio investments and foreign direct investments. And with these three questions, I try to explain several aspects to you. What is the difference between gross domestic product and gross national product? Right friends, the gross domestic product is the total value of goods and services produced within geographic boundaries of the country is the GDP. You can say Kashmir to Kanyakumari and Porbandar right up to Guwahati, whatever we are producing, that is gross domestic product. Whether it is produced by foreign company, whether it is produced by Indian company, that doesn't matter. Whatever is produced within geographical boundaries of the country is the gross domestic product. If you look at the gross national product, here the value added are goods and services produced by the permanent nationals of the country. So, for the citizens of the country, whether they produce within country or outside country, that makes gross national product. I have taken some illustration. Let us take GDP of the country. As I have already told you, GDP of the country is produced within geographical boundary of the country. For that, what is to be added, what is to be subtracted to arrive at GNP? Let me explain. All of you are well aware about Jaguar Land Rover. That is the car company based in United Kingdom, but that is owned by Tata Group. So, Tata Group is Indian based group. It is manufacturing Jaguar Land Rover in England, and that income is to be added to arrive at the GNP of the country. That is to be added, and what is to be subtracted? This Pepsi, Coca-Cola, they are manufacturing Coca-Cola, Pepsi bottles in our country, but the companies belong to United States of America. So, whatever income they are getting by manufacturing Pepsi and Coca-Cola in our country is to be subtracted to arrive at gross national product. So, GDP is the total value added within the geographical boundaries of the country in goods and services, and gross national product is the goods and services produced by the nationals of the country. Whether they are produced inside the country or outside the country, it doesn't matter. So, whatever goods and services produced by foreigners in our country is to be subtracted. Whatever goods and services produced by Indians abroad is to be added. That is the beauty of gross national product. So, this differentiates GDP and GNP. You may ask some supplementary question, what is net domestic product and net national product? If you consider depreciation of assets, depreciation means if you are purchasing a new car, its value goes on reducing year after year, that is depreciation. So, if you consider depreciation, that is net domestic product and net national product, right? So, with this illustration, I hope you are clear about GDP and GNP. What do you understand by infrastructure? Infrastructure is the world-class asset to be created for public use. Whether it is national highway, whether it is a bullet train, whether it is high-speed trains, whether it is logistic parks, whether it is ports, whether it is airports, it doesn't matter, for the public purpose, for the usage by the public, necessary mode of transport. So this is to be created with a view to ensure people will have access to all the services with world class infrastructure. So the infrastructure is developing high class roads, high class railways, bullet trains, then world class airports. Basically, with infrastructure, growth will take place, investors will come, and many people will come out of poverty. Once you develop infrastructure, growth will take place automatically. But what is lagging in our country is we do not have world class infrastructure in our country as on date also. That is the main reason why our GDP is not taking off on the expected lines of around 10% or so. What do you understand by public-private partnership? We have already discussed to create world-class infrastructure, we require a lot of money. That cannot be created by government alone. Government, they may not have much money. So, it is to be developed by private parties. So, public-private partnership is creation of public asset by private parties. Creation of world-class airport by private parties, creation of 10-lane expressway by private parties. They will first invest and subsequently they will take back their money as per concession agreement with government. Government will act as facilitator for giving all the approvals, for giving land, etc. So this is the beauty of public-private partnership, where public asset is created by the private parties, right? So, nowadays the model of development in the countries is through public-private partnership. Why the global oil prices are falling to historic lows during the past 18 months? Straightforward answer is, there is a recession across the world. During the past 7-8 years, off and on there is a recession. Economies are not going on the expected lines. Even China has slowed down. Global oil demand came down. Under these circumstances, what needs to be done by oil countries? They have to reduce the production. Now what happened is, globally the requirement of oil came down because of recession and low growth rates. At the same time, shale oil deposits came into operation in United States of America. That is second reason. Because of these two reasons, global oil demand came down drastically. When oil demand came down, then what is to be done is they have to reduce the production, because when supply is more than demand, then what will happen? Prices will crash. What happened in oil sector? When the demand is more than the supply, then only prices will stabilize. But the oil producing countries, because of their geopolitics, they have not reduced the production. That's why now in the world, the demand is much lesser than the production. Production is very high, demand is less. That's why the prices are falling across the world. Immediate step the Gulf states or the major oil producing states have to do is, they have to reduce production, but deliberately they have not reducing the production because they want to retain their global market share. Second point is, they do not want the shale oil to take upper hand in America. They want to make shale oil production totally unremunerative. With that in view, they allowed the prices to fall to historic low levels of around less than $30 per barrel. What you can say is, the situation arose because of the policies adopted by the respective oil producing countries. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, has not reduced the production in spite of a slide in oil prices for the past 18 months. That is the biggest mistake done by OPEC. Right friends, look at the next one. Why banks are finding it difficult to lend for infrastructure sector? Primary reason is lot of gross non-performing assets in infrastructure sector in recent times. Banks have lent aggressively during 2008, 2009, 2010, but now most of them became gross non-performing assets. That is primary reason. Second reason is there is asset liability mismatch when banks are granting loans to infrastructure sector, because bank deposits are for maximum period of 10 years, whereas infrastructure loans may stretch for much more period, because of which asset liability mismatch is taking place, due to which banks are finding it difficult to lend for infrastructure sector. Now government is taking steps to separate infrastructure lending from the banking system as far as possible. How do you visualize the last question of this series? How do you visualize the future of banking industry? Of course, there may be several challenges in future, because differentiated banks are coming up. Differentiated banks with specialization in sectoral operations are coming up. That is one thing. Second thing is mobile banking may take prominence in near future. Third important point is mobile wallets and digital payments may become the order of the day in future. And because of technological upgradation, there is ever possibility that the manpower requirement in the banking sector may come down. And however, in a country like India, still several people are yet to be brought into the framework of financial inclusion. So there is a requirement of manpower also, so as to extend the reach of banking services, not only financial inclusion with a view to have financial deepening of giving choice of various financial products to the people of the country. There is a still requirement of manpower, but technological upgradation will definitely is the order of the day, and technological interventions will solve many problems banking industry is facing today, right? So with this, let us conclude this series of 5 modules of how to answer banking questions. This is recorded and produced in an experimental way, so as to tell some concepts associated with banking and economy and current topics. So with this, let us conclude this series and have a nice day. Thank you. Wish you all the best in IBPS PO interviews. Thank you.